Eric added the bit in there about Saturday Night Fever. It's true, but I just don't look that way any longer 40 years later. How are you? Good. Thanks for being here. Taking time out of your busy holiday. And I hope you get something out of tonight. I was thinking about how to approach this. I know a lot of people all want to be here. How do I get an agent? Or how do I get a demo or done? And what does that all mean? And we'll cover some of that. But I really wanted to dive a little deeper in terms of what it means to be a voiceover actor in today's marketplace. So I sat down today to get my thoughts straight, and I'll read it so I don't forget anything. Before we introduce the panel, I'll just take 2 or 3 minutes, which I hope will set the tone a little bit for you tonight. 15 years ago, pursuing a career in commercial voiceovers was a pretty straight-ahead deal, especially if you worked in one of the 3 major markets of Los Angeles, New York, or Chicago. You definitely had to have a great demo to be considered seriously. Agents got used to receiving your CD or your tape demos in the mail, and if interested, they called you in. If you were signed, you would go to the agent's office or then to a casting director's office, sit in a green room, chat with your fellow actors while you waited, work with a booth director or an agent or a casting director, and do your audition. By doing so, you built relationships among your peers and the people you both worked for and with. Rates were standardized, for union work at least, and the whole system flowed rather smoothly because everyone was pretty much on the same page. Then came improvements in recording technology that made it possible for voiceover actors to affordably audition or work from home. They could just send in an MP3 file into their agent, not have to travel to the office or to a casting director's office. ISDN lines, now old school already, made it possible to record broadcast quality audio from your home, interacting with clients located almost anywhere in the world. All very convenient, all very cool, but it changed our profession profoundly. Little by little, we didn't go into casting offices as much anymore. We didn't get to know the casting directors in person, nor work with the clients face-to-face as much. Building relationships became a lot tougher when you were just a disembodied voice on an audio file. Competition increased for people in the major markets because people could work from anywhere in the country now. Then online casting sites appeared. At first derided, they slowly started making a significant impact, but at a cost to both the union and the non-union actor, something we'll talk more about. In a very short time, our job description has changed. We are not only expected to be good with our voices, but have technical skills as well in order to stay truly competitive. We must be able to market ourselves. Demos are still important, but ever evolving in their complexity, it seems. Some are now even doing visual demos with your voice added to them. Studios to work at are still out there, of course, but in many cases, we work mainly out of our homes, and the client is not particularly interested in paying for that convenience. The convenience and improvements have actually made our job more complex, and yet we're not necessarily being paid more. In fact, we are under constant pressure to do it all for less. All is not lost. Casting directors and agents are still working hard for us, grappling with this new reality the same as we are. But one thing is certain, if we value our craft, we cannot submit to the pressure to devalue what we do. We have to show respect for our profession because if nothing else, it has evolved to an even more complex skill. That makes it worth something. Remember that if you're willing to do anything to get something, you can expect about anything in return. So your voice is not just what you use to make a living as a voiceover artist. It's what you also must defend yourself with at times. By respecting what you do enough to stand up for it. There's a great deal of opportunity out there if you know how to look for it, or develop relationships in a whole new way. Make yourself known, and most importantly, seek to brand yourself as someone whose craft counts. So, we're going to dive a little deeper on that. I'm not running for office, and there's enough reasons for this to cast dispersions on all sides, including union, the way the union has been slow to catch up with some things, and the way we as actors have been slow to adapt to it, the same with the casting directors and the agents. And we're going to get into that a little bit tonight in addition to the regular questions. So if I haven't set too negative a tone, I'd rather be realistic with you, and I hope you appreciate that. Let's just be straight about this, because we are facing some serious challenges in this particular job. All right, so I'd like to introduce the first panelist, Sylvia Viagran. Sylvia is a voiceover actor, one of the top female voices for national commercial campaigns and narration, as well as TV network promos and live award shows. Her national commercial campaigns include Samsung, Cigna Health, Crest, Payless Shoes. Additionally, she currently lends her promo voice to NBC, CBS, TCM, the CW, and the Disney Channel. She's the live announcer for the Critics' Choice Awards, MTV VMAs, Teen Choice Awards, AFI Tributes, Writers Guild Awards, and the historic 2012 and 2016 Democratic National Convention. Sylvia also does all this in Spanish. Additionally, she's a member of the SAG Foundation's Don LaFontaine Voiceover Lab Advisory Board. Please welcome Sylvia Viagran. Next, I'd like to introduce Mr. Bill Ratner. Bill's one of America's most heard voices on movie trailers, TV promos, documentaries, commercials, games, and cartoons. As the voice of Hyundai USA, you can hear him just about every day on radio and television. He's also the original voice of Flint on G.I. Joe, Robot Chicken, and Family Guy, not to mention that he's an 8-time winner of the Moth Storytelling Slams featured on National Public Radio, and he also serves on the advisory board of the SAG Foundation's Don LaFontaine Voiceover Lab. Mr. Bill Ratner. Next, I'd like to introduce Ms. Carol Kimball. Carol's a casting director and the owner of Carol's Voiceover Casting. She began her career with Burt, Bars, and Kirby, where she spent 8 years in production, casting, and communication with agents, ad agency, creative directors, and producers. In 1992, she decided to go on her own, taking with her years of invaluable experience. Not only does she know a great voice when she hears one, but she can give them the direction they need to fit any project, whether it be selling beer or luxury cars, from industrial narration to cartoon characters. Carol Kimball knows what to do to make it all come together and make them all special. Carol Kimball. Thank you. Next, I'd like to introduce Mary Lynn Wisner. Mary Lynn is also a casting director from Voices Voice Casting since 1990. She and her award-winning company, Voices Voice Casting in Los Angeles, has cast thousands of voice talent in voiceover productions. From the Clio-winning Chevron Talking Cars, to the 13-part History, The Color of War, to Chrysler, Radio Shack, Chiquita, Fiat, Taco Bell, Coca-Cola, Toyota, Legos, Walgreens, Kleenex, I think we got the idea, U.S. Army, Sony, 7-Eleven, you name it, Jeep, Mattel, to several feature films, animation series, and video games, audiobooks, narrations. Also, casting voices for e-learning, promos, and IVR. Whatever voice request is needed, Mary Lynn has found the voice for it. In 2014, she created the Voiceover Self-Direction app. The app is for the iPhone, iPad, and Android devices, which guides talent to the perfect read right at their fingertips and right at home in their home booth. Mary Lynn Wisner. All right. Last, but certainly not least, is somebody we welcome for the first time, Samit Iyengar. He's an agent and with a CESD talent agency. Samit has been part of CESD's talent's voiceover department since 2003, focusing on commercials. Recently, he started covering video games as well. He has worked with ad agencies, casting directors, and production companies all over the world, booking voices on memorable campaigns for Geico, Aflac, and Snapple, among many others in both English and Spanish. Samit Iyengar. Oh, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's jump right in. So, I feel like I'm sounding like Chris Cuomo on CNN tonight. All right, let's get at it, or whatever. So, I would like to start with a little bit of the kind of the introduction I gave to them. Rather than tell us how you came to be where you are in the business, I'd like to talk about what the differences you see in the business now between 10, 15 years ago, and take it from there. So, Samik, could we start with you on that?
Sure. When I started around the time that you're talking about, it was casting director. There was casting director driven largely. New York, incidentally, is still, I feel, largely that way. But I feel like the cat's out of the bag in terms of voiceover being a successful career because everybody's doing it and it's easy to do. You can do it on your phone. Small market agencies all over the country that are getting a lot of the same opportunities that we are. The competition is just that much more. And then on top of that, it's more and more celebrity driven. So you really kind of have to be on top of your game. And it's just, I think the opportunities are smaller in volume and there's more and more people fighting for it. So it's just that much more fierce competition.
Even though it seems like there's a lot more work out there, the opportunities in a way have actually shrunk, and there's salary compression going on as well. People are having to work harder and do more jobs to make the same amount of money.
Well, I think of it in terms of, just
in terms of numbers. Yes.
Well, and also just in terms of the type of advertising. They've figured out advertisers that they can reach a larger audience in some ways online. Which doesn't pay as well as a national network commercial. So there are a lot of, social media spots and online spots being produced and fewer sort of national network spots, which are the ones that we used to really,
Oh, that's a good point, too, because it's fragmented now, even though there seems to be a lot more out there. But the audience on any particular channel or market or whatever, it's more vertically marketed is what you're getting to, I think, right? Yeah, that's a good point. Mary Lynn.
I can segue right into that. I think because of that, the internet just exploding with opportunities for voice talent all over the world. Advertising agencies have now also kind of fractured into sort of these special new media type of divisions where they will pay less for talent and know that they're going to reach as many people as they used to reach with a national network campaign. So we don't, from the casting perspective, it's to me, it's sad. It's disappointing. We really don't get to see actors as much anymore in the booth like we used to. You just kind of send the copy out there to the agents, and most of the time the actors don't even know it comes from our office. And it just makes the competition way more fierce because it used to be when you were here in LA, you were this sort of elite group of voice actors that got all the opportunities, and now you're competing with Joe in Idaho and Bill in Mississippi or whomever, and it doesn't mean that they're not good. It's just more fish in the pond, and it's a very myopic kind of existence. It takes a tough skin.
Carol.
Okay. I've got so much to say, but I still, whenever I cast, actors come to my office. I've never gotten into I don't like, well, for instance, I know Bill Ratner extremely well, and so if I, heard Bill, if I looked at a script and said Bill will be amazing being this warm storyteller, he's an amazing talent, but if he reads it at home, and even if I say warm storyteller, like something he did years ago, he will send it back, and it will not be what I heard Bill doing. I love directing the actors because I could say a little softer, a little slower. So I know I have to, the clients that I still work really hard to keep know that I bring the actors into my studio. And even if I'm not as busy as I used to be, I don't want to change with the business. I will go nuts if I start farming out copy to the agents and I just sit in my office and wait for it to come back. So I don't do that. And if that's where the business goes, I think I will be doing something else, or I will find a different niche within my business. But I don't do that. And, and the agents get irritated. well, Bill could read at home. I'm like, yeah, but he won't do it the way I'm hearing him. So it's like, oh, so sometimes I don't do that. So I know that is the new way. There are other casting people that send it to everybody and they just wait and receive it. Then I'm not a casting director anymore if I approach the business that way. So I'm an optimist. I work really hard. As much as it's changing, there still is a lot of great work out there. There are a lot of big car accounts are the dream jobs because a lot of the car accounts are union. They run these spots like crazy. Fast food. So there is a lot of non-union work. There still is a lot of union work, and there's still some great jobs out there. So that's how I have to look at it. I'm the optimist.
You bring up an interesting point because, a good writer always needs a good editor. So we as voiceover artists now are getting used to the idea that we're self-directing. But I must admit, I do miss having more of that feedback more often from a casting director or a booth director when you went in.
Sure.
Because they can push you in areas or nudge you in certain ways. And it's easy for us to fall into certain kind of traps. So I do miss that interaction. It is collaborative in that way.
Right, very
and that
much
is
so.
another casualty, I think, of this situation.
And I think it's hard for actors to direct themselves at home. I mean, actors are trained to be directed by other people, so I think that's another challenge. And I feel like, the more actors read at home and they don't book, it's very defeating, and they feel like, am I doing it right? What's going on? And so I think that is the way the business is going in a lot of ways. You have to work harder to really understand yourself as an actor and as a performer to understand what your voice is. So if it's a warm storyteller, you could jump right in and just, nail that sucker and just do that read. I think it's hard if you are able to listen back and then do it again and listen back. And so I think it's a big challenge if you are able to, when you read at home and send your reads in. So you have to be able to just really trust and know what you do best, and really focus on, being able to audition well at home.
Yeah. So, Bill, outside of the fact that your home auditions suck now, what is your response to that?
For all of these reasons, I've gone into the live Tupperware party planning business. Got some samples in my trunk afterwards. No, I'm really more optimistic. I mean, we're pros here. Most of us are members of the union, and we're members of this union for a reason. We've studied, we've worked hard, we put in our time in little black box theaters, and we're trained. I did something just a couple of years ago when Voices 123 and Voices.com came online. I listened to samples, and then I went on Atlas and CESD and Vox and Abrams and listened to voice samples from union pros. There's a huge difference. We're trained. This is what we do. And people who have massage licenses and real estate licenses and beautiful voices don't necessarily make great voiceover artists. So I'm a little more. I'm not so pessimistic about it. I think that the internet has done incredible things for us. Voiceovers is a commercial business. It ain't art. And it helps if you're trained, and it helps if you're in a workout group and you take workshops. But it's commissioned by the marketplace. It's commercial art. And I'm proud to be a commercial artist. When I do storytelling or act in a play, it's a whole different thing. But being that it's a commercial business, I gear myself towards selling, towards marketing. I ran into a woman at Promax, which is the promotional makers conference every year. People from the networks and so on, voiceover people go. And she said, hey, I think you and I work for the same TV station in Denver. And I said, really, who's your agent? She said, I don't have an agent. And I blundered and I said, well, what do you do for a living? And she said, I do voiceovers. Really? And you don't have an agent? And she listed off the cable channels and the TV stations and ad agencies that she worked for. And she said, and I quote, I think people would rather deal with me than an agent. And this is not to disparage what Sumit does so brilliantly for a living. But what it said to me was this woman who came out of radio and had some actors training knew that it's a commercial business. And she got online and got on the phone and did emails and did direct mail. And an agent who runs a big agency in this town said to me, hey, we're all digital now, Bill. Have you been on the new website? And I said, no, I haven't seen it yet. We're all digital. I said, what does that mean? We're not sending out CDs anymore. And I said, really? Interesting. Sounds like it's time for a mailing. And he said, what do you mean? I said, well, voiceover people aren't sending their demos out. I'm going to send mine out. So, I mean, I started out as an actor and doing phone sales. This is for Runner for the Lowe's of America. Oh, I should go screw myself? Okay. I did that for years to make money. I'm sure there are people, I won't ask you to raise hands. How many of you have done phone sales? But I learned a lot from that. And the voiceover business, whether you have an agent or don't, I have a fabulous agent I've been with for 20 years. I still do direct mail. On my own, I don't ask permission. I don't say, what do you think of my demo? I just do it. And that's how I've stayed in business as a voiceover person. So to answer your initial question, Paul, the changes, yeah, you're up against tens of thousands of people. How many of them can do the job? A few thousand.
I think it's important to point out the way I'm approaching this is not one of pessimism, but of realism, what we are facing, where we got to go from here. So the challenge is, yes, there's a lot of opportunity out there, but how do we adapt to a changing marketplace, a changing skill, in a way that we are still able to thrive and succeed at what we love to do? So to me, it starts with getting realistic about the playing field, and then going up from there. So I just want to clarify that. Ms. Sylvia? You weren't around 15 years ago, you know, you were so young then.
I was so...
You were young, but...
Hello?
Is that...
Testing, 1, 2, 3. No, it is. Is it working? Yeah, it's working. I think what has changed for me, what has changed in the marketplace is that I think the marketplace is really now so much more open and so much more diverse that people who are others like me, there's room for people who are different, people who are who have different voices, who have a different, I don't know, that are just different. Before, when I first started, not 15 years ago, no. But no, many years ago, there was no room for a woman of color. It just did not happen. It was not in the cards for me. But I continued to do the work. I mean, I did a lot of work. Everybody here knows me because I have taken many classes from many people, ongoing. I study the trends. I listen to commercials. I listen to radio commercials. I listen to all radio stations, by the way. For people who go, I never listen to the radio. Well, then you're not doing your job. That's your job. Like if you want to do commercials, then you need to listen to Power 106. You need to listen to Kiss FM. You need to listen to Coast, KJLH. You need to listen to AM, KFI. Whatever it is that you have to listen, you have to watch cable news, CNN, any television station, because you will get the feel for what's out there and how the market has changed. And I think a lot of people have this tendency, and we were talking about it backstage, well, let's do this part-time. And it's like, it goes back to real estate and massage therapists. Like, if you're not in this all the way, and I mean all the way in, so you have to supplement, of course, as we all do when we first start out, and you can do all that side hustle, but you have to be all in, and that means that you have to make the commitment financially, time-wise, of taking those classes and doing all that stuff to get ready, because your time is going to come. My time did come, when the market changed. There's a time when, they want raspy, they want sexy, they want the big voices, or they want, whatever it is. Eventually it changes, just like everything else changes. And right now, this new, because now they're auditioning people from all over the country, there are more opportunities. They do want real people. They don't want, you do have to be trained, and Bill, you're absolutely 100% correct. You do have to be out there trained, but then you also have to know how to do the trend, which is throw it away. Throw it away. You're no announcer. No announcer. You just say the words. So you have to know how to do that. I think you become a student of the trends. If you learn the trends and you can give people what they want, because everybody thinks they know. Every director that I've worked with, they're going to change it. They're going to do something totally different, and it's going to be completely different. And so I have to know how to go with the flow and know how to take that direction. If you don't know how to take that direction from somebody who just got out of film school and they're 23, and they're going to say, I want you to do it like this, and you don't really know what they're saying because they can't quite direct you properly. So you have to know how to translate. You need to be the translator of what he's wanting or she's wanting, and then have your own voice as well. And then if you get somebody who's old school, and then they want the whatever, a specific sound, you have to know that trend. So I think in terms of the changes in the marketplace, I think for me anyway, I have seen more opportunities for me, but that's just me. I have never thought of myself as just a voice actor. I definitely do marketing. I sell. It's about personality. It's about knowing how to make connections with your clients and make connections with your colleagues. You need to be likable. You need to be nice. Don't be an asshole. I think that's what it comes down to. There's a lot of people who are assholes. They really think, oh yeah, I got this big gig and I bought this house and now I'm driving a car. And then, they're rude and so the opportunities, well, we all know that this business it's a very small business, and just the way those opportunities come, they end, and if you're in it long enough, you will gain and then you will lose things, and you have to know repeat business. How do you keep the repeat business? I think that for me, that's number one. If you take anything away, it's not so much the opportunity that comes your way. How do you keep the opportunity, and how do you the repeat business?
I do not agree. That's one of the challenges we face now, because a lot of the sessions we do, we're not face to face with the client. We're not at the studio with them.
True.
They could be in New York. They could be in Washington. How do we build a rapport? Well, it's clearly through the tone and the quality of your attitude and everything else.
Yes, and that's exactly it. I think that it becomes there's a different. I guess it's a different skill set that you have to get, and I don't know how you get that. I mean, Bill, you did it through phone sales. I had my own. You do have to have a certain amount of, people skills on the phone, through email. What's the tone in the email? It's not like, hey, here's your file. It's like, hey, how's it going? Hope you're having a great day. How are the kids? Here's the file. And by the way, like whatever. I think there's different, it's just knowing tonality. So you kind of have to be a jack of all trades, right? As a voice actor, you have to know how to do a lot of different things. Before, it wasn't that way. You could just do, be an actor. And you can't do that anymore, I don't think, with the...
What I'm sure, and I'm just speaking to the actors up here now, I'm sure we also, when we're doing sessions, I look for nuggets of personal information that I might be able to carry over if I work with them the next time, or make a light joke about, or something that we laughed about, and then I tend to file that in my head. So it's part of the job. Now, that has nothing to do with my voice or how I use my voice during a job. It has everything to do with relationship building, which is also harder to do now. Because we have the challenge of having to do it we're just this disembodied voice a long ways away, possibly, without doing it directly. Would you agree with that? You tend to, you look for ways to build personal relationships. That's
yes, and I think that the way I have found that works for me is ease of use. I will get to your project. I will make it easy. I try to be on time. I try to be friendly and kind. Again, it goes back to ease of use. really the client is looking for someone who is going to solve their problem, not create a problem. If you are now, not nailing the read or not able to understand what they're asking for, that's where the training comes in. If you're not there, you're running late, you have another session, now it's a little more difficult. Now, this is, I don't know. I mean, yeah, so I'm a little, I don't know.
Just for variety's sake, I'm going to disagree completely. The joy of voiceovers is I don't have to show up anywhere. And when I do, I mean, I tell you, I've been treated so many times. I had a producer sitting across from me. Talent? Yes, sir. In there. That was our relationship.
It happens.
And so and my reaction was, wow, I didn't have to do anything. I mean, I'm not really that familiar with the actor's life, but I know that actors have to show up and do showcases and schmooze and go to parties. If I ever go to a party, it's because a friend invited me and I want to be there. And yes, you have to be professional, and yes, it does make it. Your chances of getting the next gig from the same individual are greater if you're cordial on the phone and you're professional and so on. And there are creeps who lose work. Somebody played a recording for me in a studio. You have to listen to this. What is this? It was a guy who was doing very, very well. He put it on. He was doing a voice patch with a client in Phoenix, and it was, "Hey man, you got one goddamn take. This is the voice talent." And I said, "This is just amazing. This is like the art of the creep." And so I decided, okay, that I won't do. And there've been enough. I had an agent say to me, "You just got a gig at Paramount for some non-broadcast narration thing." I said, "Really?" He said, "He asked me a funny question." The producer, and I said, "What did he ask you?" This is the agent talking, and she said, We like Bill's audition. We don't know him at all. Does he have the big voice syndrome?" And she said, "That's so funny. I've never heard that. What does that mean?" He said, "Asshole." And so that was a clue. I agree completely that, but I'm just naturally not.
Yeah.
And
there is a certain. I want to move on from this, but you get a certain amount of relief working home in your case because you're already established. But to somebody that may be trying to get out there, they have to work it a little harder.
Yeah, but generally, if you never left your basement, except to go to the post office to mail your thumb drives and your computer upstairs to send out your emails, that's the life of the voiceover person.
Not for me.
Well,
That was people that say I'll show up in my pajamas. I have never showed up in my pajamas. Like, not ever. Seriously, I will not. I go the extra mile because as a woman and as a Latina, I've had to work really, really hard to get to where I am, to get a place at the table. It did not come like that easy. So I don't get to just show up and and just be relaxed. Even though most people do that, and they work, and it's great. That was not my story at all. I've had to really bust my ass to be a part of that. So just for me in general, it is going the extra mile. What can I do to do the extra mile? Because just showing up for me did not work. That's just me.
I get that. I feel the same way. I work really hard to make sure any client I work with will never want to work without me. I make it easy. I make it quick. You have to be really, really, really good at what you do. I think less is more. I always say that. It doesn't mean you've got to just being professional and really knowing your craft and being really, really good at it is important. And when actors come to my office, it's nice when I know when someone's pleasant and, "Hi, nice to meet you. The script's right here. I have a very pleasant environment." I think sometimes when actors try to talk too much or if they try to make jokes, you can kind of trip yourself up because then you get nervous and, it's just good just to show up. That's all we expect. Look over your copy, get ready to go into the booth and record and be a pro. Just be really ready to do your thing and know your voice and be able to take direction well. I work really, really hard on everything I do. It could be one word, it could be a narration script. And I think I'm working harder than I've ever worked before because you have to work harder to keep the work that you have. So if someone doesn't use Carol voiceover casting, they can go to somebody that's going to send out copy and get all these links all over the place. So I want whatever I do to be exceptional compared to that. And it usually is if I get a chance to work with a client. Some people want numbers. They just want to hear people all over the country. I think everybody's talent is in Los Angeles, so I don't know why people are going anywhere else. I don't know why they're going to Idaho or Wyoming or I don't know. I don't want to go out of state. Sometimes if a client just says, well, this is a big national search and we need to hear everybody, but I know they think that, but they really don't. They really don't.
Or they say we want actors, not voiceover people.
Right, exactly. So I do know they mean, I know what kind of voice, I know certain actors that might be in New York or might be in Chicago, but I'm just not going to, it's just not what I do. I'm just not going to try to bring in every type of actor that's doing something else. And so selectively I handpick the people that I'm gonna see. Most of them have agents. And I know who I'm bringing in. How do you get into my office if I don't know you? Your agent will say, you know, Carol, 3 guys you want to see are not available, but I have 3 new guys that I think you will love to see. And I say yes. Sometimes they'll say, well, I'll send the demos. I'm like, no, I'm going to trust you because the agents, we work together. I'm going to trust Samit. He's not going to send me anyone that I'm not going to like, and so, or that's not ready. And I love it sometimes when an agent says, you know, I think I do know somebody, but I'm going to wait. I don't know if he's ready yet. So agents want to send you to meet casting directors when you're ready and when you're ready to really do your thing. So I feel like the work ethic is really important because I wouldn't be able to work at home. I have an office. I would be terrible working at home. I want to go water my roses or I think about moving my furniture around. I've always had an office my entire career. I still have an office today. And I go to work and I always think if actors are at home, do they get up and like go to work? Like do they go, you know, get up, get dressed, go to their booth like they're going to the office? But most people say, no, they don't. I don't know. I think it's challenging. So you have to find out how you work best and what feeds you and how do you feel you thrive. Maybe you could book every job there is in your pajamas. And maybe because you're really relaxed. Maybe you have to go to an office. The one thing that I do miss is I used to see a lot of actors have great experiences when they would see each other in my office. To this day, when that happens, it doesn't happen as much. But I would see an actor, let's say Don LaFontaine, God bless him, was in my office and auditioning for something, and he was usually running in and out, but another actor saw him when he was walking out, and this actor felt like, oh my God, I'm reading the same thing that Don's reading. And it just kind of made that actor feel like he was a little bit more in the game. So I feel like actors thrive off of each other, so when you see each other, or it could be someone that you've worshiped your entire life, or one of your favorite actors from a favorite TV show, when you see that person and you're auditioning in the same room, I feel like it just helps you to connect more. That adrenaline that kicks in and that kind of that good nervous energy is important. And so I feel like you don't get that when you're at home because you're just at home. So I don't know. I think it's going to change a little bit. I think it's got to come back in some way. But if you do read at home, you've got to find out how to get that energy, that actor adrenaline to kick in. So you really want to, get the work done and really book that audition.
Good. So kicking this over now to another area because we've explored the voice pretty good. Samit, question for you. What advantage is it to you as an agent to have an actor that can not only impress in the casting office, but can impress with technical skill enough to deliver a very solid audition, broadcast quality audition, MP3, whatever you got? What does technical skill bring to the actor in this day and age?
It is huge. It is huge. There are times where they will just lift the audition and put it on air. You have to think of voiceover, I think, especially with commercials, as the last stop. And a lot of times, the producers and the ad agency people, maybe they forgot there's a voiceover, they're under the gun. Anything that you can do, and just kind of builds on Sylvia's point too, to make their job easier is going to impress them. And if there's a audio glitch or something, if you're recording in a big room and it's bouncing off the walls and we can hear that, it's going to be distracting. And I find that technology makes it so easy now, even on your phone, to develop, to deliver, in some case, a broadcast quality thing, that there really is no excuse, for any kind of bad sound or anything like that. I mean, if you're not going to go into your agent's office, which more actors should, and you will only read from home, you at least owe it to your agent and the opportunities that you're getting to make it sound as good as possible.
So that's almost, at this point, it's part of the job to be technically proficient, which is that's an expansion from where we used to be, where we could go in to your offices or into your offices and just work with a booth director, and then they would be responsible for the quality. But that is another layer to which we've been now subjected to. Again, I bring it up, why should we be doing that for less? Or why should we be suffering salary compression? Or why should we be treated, it's like our skill is being dumbed down little by little by little, even though the job responsibility is expanding, and the client is actually saving money when we do it for him out of a home studio. So I think that needs to be worth something, and we have to look at our craft as having worth. If we're going to evolve with it, they need to evolve with us, and they need to treat us, in my opinion, fairly. But they will take advantage of people that are willing to be treated unfairly just to get a gig. Now, I'm not proselytizing here just for union membership or anything like that. That's not the point, because I've got my own beefs with, I think, how the union has been slow to respond to some of this in a way that has been more protective of the voiceover community. But I do think, which leads me into my next question for everybody, we're now beginning to see an effort by the union in on-camera commercials to bring them more back into the union. So my question for you guys is, we see these efforts going on. If they succeed and a lot more starts to go back to the way you're describing, how is that going to affect voiceover actors, not just on-camera actors? And if it does not work out, how will that affect voiceover actors? Who would like to jump in with that? In other words, if this attempt right now to start bringing more on-camera commercials back into the union fold, because they've had a runaway on that. Okay, so if that succeeds, I would imagine that's going to be a good thing for voiceover actors as well. If it does not succeed, and a lot of these agencies stay out and continue to do more and more non-union, how does that affect the voiceover actors' future? We are tied intrinsically together. So thoughts on that?
I'm thinking it's easier in the on-camera world to bring the people back because, you have, it's Hollywood. You have more actors doing on camera. There is just such a plethora of voiceover talent all over the country, all over the world. It's so easy for any producer to get them without the union, without an agent, without a casting director. So I think it's going to be a much easier task to bring on-camera people back versus voiceover people back. And I've noticed, there's so many. My ex-husband is an on-camera commercial casting director, and he was telling me that almost everybody, well, not almost everybody, but a lot of people do self-taping now, and that's for commercials, which blows my mind. So I still kind of can't wrap my head around that because commercials is such a different beast. But there's so many people now doing that as a service, so I just sort of see that exploding. I'm fascinated to see how the union is going to bring people back on camera or voiceover. But like I said, I still think it will be easier on camera.
I do think that on-camera actors have a little bit more leverage in that area. One thing I think it's sort of related, because I will get phone calls from ad agencies that aren't Signator or production companies that want to hire union talent, and then what always ends up happening is they said, well, we shot this commercial with non-union actors. Well, you can't use union voiceover then. And I think that should be something that if you had separated the two, at least union voiceover talent could have a shot at those commercials. But I think if you do get more on-camera talent and on-camera commercials, I think inevitably that would help voiceover. But we'll see what happens. My fingers are crossed.
I think it will help because they have to hire the VO talent union if they are going to give union actors a shot. So I think that it might, and then they might hear people that they like that are the stronger talent again. I think that everything gets watered down, and sometimes you get used to people that are not very good. It's like your standard, your level of performance changes. And we look at reality TV, and they're not actors, and all these crazy scenarios that we could look at if we want to. And then we have, the YouTube kids and the YouTubers, or we have, they call them influencers, and they're not actors, but influencers are getting agents down, and influencers, they'll hire them to read a script, and they're not very good because they're not talent, so they're not performing. But everybody will know that, everyone will know that it's this, influencer that has 1 million followers. So the performance, it's not, we aren't hearing what we used to hear. We aren't hearing beautiful, rich voices and storytellers and actors. So hopefully we will start hearing great voices again if it does change. And, the level, it's like everything will go back up. I think there are a lot of B and C voices that we hear all the time now. And maybe we'll get the A-list people or just really good LA talent working again.
Well, I think if you have DirecTV or Time Warner or whatever you have, you've got, I don't know how many hundreds of broadcast outlets that never used to exist. There were 3, ABC, CBS, NBC, that was it. And when we started in the business, how do I get into voiceovers? Well, there are 5 guys and 1 woman who work. When one of them dies, you can audition. And I mean, really, that was not terribly untrue. I think, yes, you do hear non-union. I remember seeing when I was about 13 years old a hairspray commercial after Twilight Zone, and the actors were obviously amateurs. And then I read in the newspaper, my dad was in the advertising business, that particular production company with this national client was run by the mob.
Oh my God.
So that was an exception. I think you still hear all the great stars. I got put out of a 7-year gig by Paul Rudd, partly because he's half my age, but he's also a magnificent actor with a lovely voice. And I think that quality will out. National advertisers love to rumble in voices 1, 2, 3, and can we get somebody for $200? Of course you can. But they're not going to hire that person because they're not going to sell Ford or Revlon or McDonald's. They're simply not, because they're not capable, because quality voices are in the Screen Actors Guild and AFTRA. And I had a woman call me who said, "We just love your voice." This is a very non-broadcast thing. And it was a big national real estate corporation down in Orange County. We have $150. And I said, "Oh, well, as you can imagine, like most professional announcers, I'm a member of SAG-AFTRA, and the scale for the job you're asking for is $389. We just can't. Oh, we'd love your voice. We just can't. We have your demo." And I said, "Let me ask you a question. How much is the production?" This is a one-off thing that they did for investors that was going to show once at their corporate headquarters. And she wouldn't answer my question. Because it was a minimum of $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, and she was not going to pay an extra $300 for the voice. Bullshit.
Right, there you go.
And
exactly.
so yes, they're going to try. Corporate America has been trying from the beginning to just chip away and shoot people in the streets in 1930 when they're trying to organize ship workers unions, and janitors 3 years ago, they have a union. So I mean, I agree with everything that's being said. It is difficult, and it is hard work. Acting is hard work, but there is, for people who really want to do voiceovers and want to make money at it and see it as a really cool art, a strange mutation of theatrical art. I'm a real person, I'm a character, I'm also selling you something, and you love me because I'm the spokesman, the 3 jobs of the voiceover actor. It's doable, it's gettable, and as far as I'm concerned, it's achievable.
Very good point. I want to add, I hope it succeeds, this movement in this direction, and I hope it succeeds for another reason. It's like the Wild West out there right now. Constantly, how many of you belong to Voiceover blogs or on Facebook or whatever, if you're following this, okay, constantly people are asking each other, what do you charge for this? Or how much is this? What's fair about this? And there's people out there like Wovo that's doing their best to bring some sanity to all this. The reason I hope it is it gives us some sense of standards again. And that we have everybody's working on the same playing field. And it's easier on you as agents and as casting people. And actually, the agencies I've been told they actually enjoy it because instead of having to worry about every little situation where actors were forced to bid against each other and one did it for 150 and one did it for 250, they know what the day rate is and that's it. I come from the position of a person that's been able to work union almost in my entire career. So I don't do non-union work. I have that luxury. But I more so, I sit there and I look at those posts and I realize how vulnerable people are. Because I feel very, very grateful and lucky to know that I've got a level of protection. I've got a level of that it's going to go towards my health plan. It's going to go towards my retirement. It's going to go whatever. But right now, it is crazy out there. It doesn't mean that people aren't going to do this work. They are. But if you're forced to bid against another actor for your job and it's not set, or the same job is going for one rate on one site and another rate on another site, well, you know somebody's skimming, you know something's going on. What do we do to make sure that we have some protections? This is the one thing the union can really do by insisting that it's protecting the people that work under these contracts. And believe it or not, it makes the job easier for everybody. So you pay a little bit more, but you know what? It's a lot more sane. It's just a lot more sane.
I hate working in non-union. It makes me crazy. I don't like it. And even if it is, it's usually with a client that I've had for years, and I want to keep this client, this ad agency, and they will just say, Carol, for this, we want to go non-union. These are going to be internet-only voiceovers, and so I will work on the project, but it's just way too loose. And then they will say, well, I want to hear them read it this way. And I'm like, well, you should pay a demo fee now, because if they've 2 scripts. Sometimes they'll say, can the actors read 4 scripts? I will never have an actor read 4 scripts. No, they should read 1 script, possibly 2, and by that time you should pay a demo fee to direct them so you really know. So even though it is a non-union job and I'm working on it, I have respect for the actors and respect for the business. And so we do have to keep it as close to the way it has always been. But non-union's a lot harder. That's why I don't like it. And it's too loose and it's messy, and people could change their mind at the last minute, and everyone has a right to. So an actor could have auditioned for something, he books it, tells his friends, oh man, you can't do that, it's non-union, you're gonna do that? And the actor changes his mind last minute. He has the right to do whatever. So it's just too loose. It's not how I'm used to working, so I want everything to go back as well. I think it'll be great for everybody if it does. But it's just too, and also I feel like the money's insulting sometimes, and I feel like if you accept a job for $200 or $150, you've worked hard to be in this room. You are all SAG members. That's why you're here. You've invested in some part of your business to be an actor. So why are you going to make $200 when it should be $500? And residuals. Or I know $2,500 sounds great, but that spot might make $25,000. It might make $50. It might make $100. And so I know you want to take the money and run, but sometimes if it all comes back, then we're all going to work and be more successful than we've ever been, the way it was 15 years ago.
And to both Carol and Paul's point, the question occurred in my mind, okay, what can we do? How do we protect this? How can we get back some of the non-union work? How can we keep it union? I got a call once from the local, from a staff member. It said, are you willing to come to a meeting about promotional announcements? And I said, okay, I'd never gotten a call in my life from the union. And I started going, just simply to protect my own rear end, because I wanted to know, well, what goes on here? What do these people do? And I started getting involved 25, 30 years ago, and it was the best thing I ever did. It wasn't just a learning experience. It was, I was able to tell them, I'm getting calls about non-union, this is what happened, I worked a non-union job, blah, blah, blah. And we as members bring the solutions to the union by showing up. So whatever your area is, whether you're primarily theatrical or a voiceover is something, the commercials contract, and we all get these emails, come to the WW sessions if you have time. And they're exercises in pure democracy, sometimes the most fascinating chaos with celebrities in the room and non-celebrities. But the real story is every experience that we've all had in this room, either in a hiring hall or a non-union website, the union is desperate to know your experiences because it helps the organizers go, okay, so this is what they're doing. I just heard this from 10 members. If we don't show up at these meetings, we have less power. Our opinions, our experiences are exactly what the union organizers need to hear. And so I would invite all of you to just take a little closer look at your emails that come from the union, the wages and working conditions committees. Members are always invited. And we always think, it's this big thing that runs itself, and I hope I don't get in trouble and blah, blah. It ain't that. My dad was not a union guy, he was an advertising guy. But I got involved because I'm a member, and I thought, well, I want to find out, am I going to get in trouble or what's going on? And I ended up finding out that my experiences in the trenches, not as a big-time pro, but as a young person starting out, were exactly what the union wanted to hear. So I invite you to come on down.
Yeah, so this panel, even though it might seem to some of you this way, this is not an advertisement for the union. I mean, we do occasionally get non-union people in here, but I believe that moves along these lines, standardizations and creating a more level playing field protects not only union actors, but it gives the non-union actor who's up and coming some kind of a benchmark to work from because they have no idea. So they have something that they can shoot for that becomes more rational. So I think it helps to, and it also, because right now we have situations where actors are played off against each other, forced to bid against each other on a job. Basically, whoever gives the cheaper bid might get the job over the other. Or they'll come back to you and say, hey, we want to use your gun and reuse that. Will you do it for less money? Or da-da-da-da. They're constantly working you. Part of this came from the agency model changed a little bit, because they used to have all their production costs. Then there was like 15% commission or 16% commission on top. That's where they made their money. Now, a lot of agencies are being told, okay, this is your budget for this is commercial. Get it done, and whatever money you can save, that's what you can keep. So now you've got a situation where they're trying to save a buck wherever they can. Okay? Should we do it for $150 when we could do it for $395 or whatever he's saying? Absolutely not. Let them find the money somewhere else. That's a fair price for what we do. And if not, let them go back to the client, get a little bit more money. Sylvia.
So, something really interesting because you were talking about how because I'm also on the Facebook, on social media, and you see all the the actors asking on the different groups, what do I charge for this and what do I charge for that? And I have noticed there's a certain, it's almost a little bit like a multi-level marketing feel happening out there on voiceover. So if you take this class and I'll do your demo and then I'll get you work and then you're ready to do non-union work and then you're on Voices 1, 2, 3 or on whatever it is. But then once you have paid that money and then you're on Voices 1, 2, 3 or 5 or wherever it is that you're getting this work and you charge the $150, then you're going to realize after 1 or 2 jobs, like, how are you going to make a living, like a real living as a voiceover actor? And the answer is you're not. That's the truth.
On top of that, you have to have an expensive, studios are expensive. I mean, you can start kind of just low budget, but a good microphone's $1,000, $1,200 or more. a whisper room. You know, if you want to be a pro, you've got to have
If you want to be a pro and you want to
Right.
get the right
And
equipment.
but the problem is there are these, charlatans out there that are perpetuating the idea of anybody can make six figures in their pajamas. And, it's
Multi-level marketing.
It's crazy. It's just crazy. I every year I go to this event called Voiceover Atlanta. And there's people from all different levels of, you were there when you were right, of the voiceover world. And it's pretty legit. I do respect the people that run it, but 3/4 of those people will never make it. I know they'll never make it. And there's these people that coach and teach and that are just feeding into that frenzy. It's so disheartening to me. And there's never anybody from the union there telling them, try this or let's do this. And as casting directors, I know when I'm casting a job, if they ask me to cast it non-union, the first thing I always say is, if you go union, I can get you better talent. And then I have a minimum rate. I will not allow any actor to get paid less than $500. So, we as casting directors are your advocates as well. And I think that if you're going to these conventions or you're going to coaching or you're going to, people making demos and so on, check them out, do some research, go on these voiceover forums on Facebook and sort of see what the scoop is on everybody. Because there are, unfortunately, a lot of shady people out there taking advantage of actors, trying to get into this. So it's
Not only
daunting.
people, but full-blown businesses with a lot of money behind them. The online casting sites have become probably the biggest example of that. I mean, Voices.com has something like 250,000 subscribers who pay $400 a year or something like that to be a part of it. But if you want to pay $1,500 or
think it's $5,000.
$5,000, you get better auditions. Do you see where this is going?
But you know what they don't do,
You know.
and this is what's really shady with these guys. Sylvia was talking earlier about building your relationship with clients. They won't let you know who the client is. So you book a job and they're just, if you're smart enough, you'll say at the session, hey, let me get your email address. But a lot of these people that, again, who are kind of new to this, they don't know that. Whereas if this was a job that was booked through your agent or a legit casting director, you will find out who the ad agency, who the producer is, a production company, or whomever, and you can get that information and follow up with a thank you note or whatever you might do. But these companies out there, they are really feeding into that desire that many people have to be voiceover actors. So it's we're a little bit safer here in LA. I think there's a lot more protection and opportunities and great agents and things like that. But other places, not so much.
Well, it's actually, as far as voices.com, just if you're an actor, just so you're aware, it's actually, because it's even worse than you're saying, because you're paying a fee to be on their site. If you book the job, they're taking 20%. Their budget could be $20,000. Yeah, exactly. Their budget could be $20,000. You bid on the job for $500. Who do you think's getting the $19,500? So they're getting like 3 streams of payment per project, from the actor. And I guess that's legal in Canada. I don't know, but it's it's really, really shady. And when I talk to actors we find out are on it, they have no idea. They think that it's a pretty above board service, and it just isn't. And it's not actor friendly. And it's certainly not agent friendly, but that's a different.
The good thing is I've noticed
Not the purpose of it.
I have had a lot of producers that have gone on that site or production companies and did not like what they heard, and then they'll come to a legit casting director. That's what I like to call us, legit casting directors, because they know I'm going to handhold them through the process, only bring in the 10 best people or whatever. So there is a little bit of that coming back now, and because they also bought Voice Bank, which used to be the delivery service for agents and ad agencies back a couple years ago, there's been a lot of pull back from that as well. So ad agency people are just like, I'm done. I just want to go back to a casting director. Thank God.
Yeah.
But in the interim, I don't know about your office, but we've had to reduce our rates a lot in casting because, like you were saying, Paul, they've cut the budgets. So I've many jobs now I've had to kind of say, okay, well, I'll charge you this and not what I would normally charge, just so I don't lose that client.
Or they may not have cut the budget, but they've
Cut my budget.
cut your budget, and they need to save money somewhere. One more thing, and then I want to move on because I also want to get to questions out here. Basically, and that is, would you not agree we could all admit to the fact that we were all a little bit like a deer in the headlights for a few years while all these changes were taking place? Can't just point a finger at the union saying they didn't respond fast enough. We all had to take time to understand the changes that were afoot. And it really kind of uprooted us for a while. That's what allowed companies like this, I believe, to flourish, step into that void and take advantage, as opposed to because we didn't really have a response. I do believe that response now is beginning to happen, as you were just talking about. There is the pushback. I loved when VoiceBank got bought by them, and a lot of agencies said, "No way, not doing it. We're not giving you our best people. You're not going to." ThisVoices.com bought VoiceBank, and they thought, "Oh, we're going to have access to all these union actors, great talent, and you're going to mine that for a while." And many agencies said, "Not my people."
I've noticed it's an interesting thing happened too, is that ad agencies are now just emailing us directly.
Right.
And they're saying, I don't want to deal with voices. I'm just going to send this to my 6 favorite agents, instead of the hundreds that they could have, by clicking on
Right.
the box. So it's actually in a weird way worked out for agencies.
right.
So maybe we
talent
are.
agencies
We're
as well.
turning a corner and adjusting
I
to
think
it
so.
in a way that's, a good thing.
Listen,
I would
people
like to
made
see
a
it.
lot of money when there was no voice bank. People made a fortune when there was no voice bank. I mean, huge careers were built based on no voice bank, and agencies, like you're saying, Samit, contacted agencies directly and would fax the script, and that agency would, record their actors, send voices, and there was no. I do think that modern technology is great for a lot of things. I think the delivery system is great, the way we could send a link, but voice bank in a way kind of ruined what the creativity of the business. And I feel like it's a big numbers game. I had a client once that called me and said, "Carol, we want you to cast for this, but we did go to Voice Bank, and so maybe you'll listen through. I'll send you the link of these 436 voices." I'm like, I'm not going to listen to that. I'm not going to listen to that. I might scroll through and look at some names to see who you read, but I'm not. So they got all these voices back, and they didn't want to touch it, because they looked at those numbers kind of like, "Oh, man, we should have hired a." So then I worked on it after the fact, but you don't have to hear 500 people read. That's not how it works. Everyone pretends that's how it works. And these events to make everyone think that you can do it, and you could do it anywhere you are. And so there are not 100,000 people pursuing voiceovers. They're interested in it, but I feel like we go back to the talent here in Los Angeles, Chicago, New York, and the actors, the SAG-AFTRA actors that we see on commercials and TV shows, the working actors, or even people that have been stunt people or in the business in some way, or on-air personalities or DJs or broadcasters or news people, but it goes back to the working actors. So and listen, I have a Facebook page because I have to, but I don't read any of the stuff out there. I don't read blogs. I just don't. It gets in my head too much. It just makes me sick to my stomach. I get anxious. I don't know. I just can't handle it. I don't read any of that. And I know there's a lot of dialogue out there that's very upsetting and disturbing. And so I rather go to Barney's and shop online, or at least look. And I look at the Architectural Digest magazines and things like that. But it's disturbing because people are upset and they are confused, and it makes me feel bad. And so I just still try to work the way I've always worked, and hopefully if we do more of that, it's going to make everybody else do that too.
I also just wanted to say that just based on something that Bill said earlier, that that you wanted to pay $150 and that the union rate was $380. And if you think about it, really what the people who are on social media saying, tell me what I should bid. Like, is this fair? Is this a good, that's what the union does. I mean, the union does that for you. And really, there's not that much of a difference. It really, if you think about it, on what the rate is. So, and then going back to the whole, Voices 1, 2, 3, I think that, or Voices and Voices 1, 2, 3, I think that our responsibility as talent really is just to do our job, get really good at what we do. There is no easy, see, that's the thing. There's no shortcut. I mean, there just isn't. I mean, I've been doing this a very long time, like 20 some years. And I take a lot of classes and I do privates still. I do a lot of research. That's my job. And I think that as talent, there is no great demo that you can be. There's not a $3,000 demo that you can pay somebody that's going to get you this work. I think there's that fallacy of, if you just pay, by today and plus, and then, it's not going to get you the work. A great demo is not going to get you the work.
Cream rises to the top. You have to, all in all, you have to have the talent.
I mean, a
That's
great
what it
demo
comes
is
down to.
important, for sure.
It is very
It is absolutely important. But that when you're starting and you're thinking that you're going to pay $2,500, $3,000 for a demo, and that's going to get you an agent and then a work, if you can't replicate what you just did on that demo, you're going to make yourself look dumb and your agent look dumb. You're going to waste people's time, and we go back to we circle back.
And with the
It's
increased
about-
competition, that makes it even more
So, and
difficult.
we go right back to, you are a problem solver. You are not there to add another level of problems to the production company. If they just hired you to do something, they spent money on the casting, they spent money on the, on the, what is it, the studio, for you to go and waste the time. So,
If you have a great $3,000 demo and you can't replicate that, you're not going to get an agent, right?
Right.
So you can, because nobody knows it might have taken you 40 takes to do that one great spot, and you send that off, because pretty much demos nowadays are just used to get an agent. So, an agent might be impressed and they're going to bring you in, but the first thing you do is put them in the booth,
Exactly.
right? And so you have to be able to do exactly what's on your demo.
I do have clients that, for instance, if I'm casting for Mazda, they might give me their short list of people that they like. And they will say, Carol, does this guy have a demo? Does she have a demo? Does he have a demo? And so sometimes they want to just see what other work this actor's done or hear the range. And maybe it's coming from their client, but that does happen a lot. And sometimes the people that I brought in, sometimes 3 guys don't have demos. I'm like, oh my God, I don't believe they, And I'll call and I'll say, listen, these guys are working actors. I've been seeing them for a very long time, but I didn't know until now they don't have demos. Sometimes that does happen, but it's like having all your stuff in place, having everything in order. I never thought that I would get a job based on having a Carol Voiceover casting website, but some of my biggest jobs were, for whatever reason, they would call me and say, please tell me you have a website, because business affairs or whatever, they want to know that you have a website. And I'm like, yes, I do. And that made me more legit in someone's mind. And I'll be honest with you, sometimes a friend of a friend says, a friend's doing voiceovers, and I kind of roll my eyes because I'm thinking, okay, one more person that thinks that they do voiceovers. Mm-hmm. And they'll say, but can they have their email? Because they want to email their demo, they want to email an MP3. But my attitude changes immediately, because I'm thinking, okay, I'm hearing stuff that is what the business is. And so at least knowing MP3, email the demo, that kind of thing, it's very, very important. So the demos are good to get your agent, but even sometimes if you lucked out and if you connect with an agent without a demo, because sometimes that happens. I have agents looking for younger people sometimes, where they say, Carol, 3 guys just left, do you know any good talent? Or so sometimes people can connect through their on-camera agency. If you're with SBV, they have on-camera and voice. You might book the on-camera tag. I mean, you might be the on-camera actor that books the tag, and so then they're going to be interested in you in voiceovers. So you still might not have a demo, but eventually do one so it represents your body of work or what you could do in voiceovers. Very important.
One more comment, then I want to spend the last section just on your questions, just to wrap up. most of us didn't go into this profession to be anything other than artists. But it seems like it's more important than ever that we have to be good business people as well as artists, and that good engineers and good technicals. So it's like somehow we have to reconcile that, because it sometimes runs counter to whatever artistic instincts we might have. But it seems like in this day and age, more and more and more, you need to be savvy to not only how corporations work, just as you do. You need to have a website because business affairs wants to see that. So you have to think like the client. You have to think like what your agent needs in order to sell you properly. Or what the casting director is going to need from you. You have to have all that bag of tools at your disposal. And it seems like it's an ever-expanding bag of tools, and that's just the challenge that faces you. If you're into it, you're not, and add the competition to it. But as Don LaFontaine used to say, if you're afraid of the competition, you're not in the game. And so if it's what you want, you'll figure it out. You'll figure out a way to go there. So we'll have maybe some wrap-up comments on that. But let's get to your questions, okay? Is it Leith? Leithberg? Where are you? Raise your hand. Hey, Leith. How you doing, man? This question for anybody. It says, when we submit to our agents from home, it often feels as if we're just throwing our auditions into the void. Is there anything you can recommend to lift our work above the crowd?
I'd send your agent an email, or maybe CC them on the audition, or if it's something particularly different or challenging, or you feel like you knocked something out of the park that is a different kind of read than you normally do, that we want to hear that stuff. And, I try to listen to everything before it goes out. I mean, almost everything. And we'll try to call actors and give them feedback. Not everybody does that, but, there's an expression that our owner, Paul Doherty, uses, agenting the agent. Sometimes you have to kind of be your own advocate, and there's nothing wrong with that. Just reach out to your agent and ask, for their feedback on something. Commercially, I will say that that's the biggest thing. You sort of just put these auditions out there, and it's not like animation where there's a callback where you can call a casting director and say, what do you think about, this person? They're listening to hundreds of these things, so the callback the feedback is the avail or the booking, unfortunately. And if you don't hear that, it can feel like you're just putting it out into the ether.
Well, I think when you're just beginning with an agent, it's okay just so you both get on the same page. But I think if you're doing it too much after a period of time, then it's like, well, you're there because we think you belong there. Just do your job.
Right.
Again, that's smart.
Be smart about it.
Be smart about it.
I think if anybody's ever accused you of being OCD, this is the field for you. Because to audition, and I've been doing this for 40 years, I audition every day. And for some reason, and Sylvia's absolutely right. I studied for 6 years, probably 40 weeks of the year I was in a voiceover class, until my agent finally said, "Stop. Your employers are your." But I mean, it was really important. But to the audition, every first audition that I do, I'll do 2 takes. The first one never has any life or intelligence to it. I'm the same guy. 60 seconds later, somehow in my head, the process of doing voiceovers is very intuitive and subconscious. That's why I find it so fascinating. It's acting. Yes, it's commercially commissioned, and I have to say Ford, I have to say whatever. But to pay attention to your audition, even to the point of editing, and audio editing is simpler than word software. Video editing is hard. Audio editing ain't. And if you have GarageBand on your computer at home, or download a free audio editing software, to answer this man's question, paying attention to each of those 3 or 4 takes and really listening, how is this character supposed to sound? Because I really believe that all the reads are in our head. We've been listening to television since we were 7 months in utero inside mommy. and we've heard it all, and we've seen great actors, and we've been to New York, and we've seen brilliant television in the last 5 years. All the reads are here. It's just a question of being patient with yourself in the audition and getting it out, and then listening back with that OCD gene and going, the first way I did this doesn't work, but the second take and blah, 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 and spend that extra 15 minutes and you've got a great audition. You've got the best audition you can do. If you just kind of toss it off, I can do this, I don't have a lot of time, that's what the audition is going to sound like.
How many people here are currently using the lab? A lot of people? Oh, great. Awesome. You have a tool available to you that a lot of us didn't have. You can go into that solo booth by yourself. You can sit there and work on those auditions and listen to yourself without having to be under the pressure of an audition. That's why we call it a lab. That's where you have the opportunity to go in and fail. And Don didn't care. One of the reasons it's named after him for a reason, captures the spirit of who he was. Almost everybody, pretty much everybody up here knew him. I had the pleasure of having him as my best friend for 31 years. But the point is, he was a very giving person. He didn't care if you had 1 credit or 5,000 credits. There's plenty of work out there for all of us if we're willing to go for it. He used to say, we all have a lot of voices inside us, as you're saying. Go find them. You have more inside of you than you know. Go find them. And I think that that's the encouragement, and that's what the lab's about. A place to explore that, develop your technical skills as well as your voice, whatever your particular voice is. It's really helpful now. Yeah.
So also, when auditioning for me, I know that the number one thing that I look for is the specs. The specs are they are doctrine, because that is what the creative has written for you. That's what they want. They're very specific about it. Please pay really close attention, because that's, and so that's number one. That's the first thing. The second thing for me is, if you've been listening and doing your research, radio, television, all the commercials, you hear the trends, you see what's out there, and you take that spec, you listen to the trends, and now you're going to translate on how that applies to you, wanting to deliver what it is that they are now painting, because somebody spent a lot of time writing and creating this. Their salaries are exorbitant. The creative directors, because they have a vision, and your job is to, finish that off and polish it. So you're a spoke in that creative wheel. So I think it's really important that when you're doing that read and that audition, so that it doesn't feel like you're just throwing it out there. If they're asking you 1 take only, or 2 takes, all right. So if it's 2 takes, what are those 2 takes you're sending? Is it just you reading the same script twice? No, you need to have a plan. What's your plan? And if it's you reading it the way they've asked for the spec, let's say, thrown away. It's a regular person, no announcer. Okay, so now you do it that way. Who are you? Who are you speaking to? Then the second take, maybe you do the same thing, but maybe there's a little bit of something there. I don't know, maybe a little more excitement. Because there is a way of throwing a little excitement into a regular read. So, but you need to know that. See, that's your job. Then it becomes about, how to deliver that audition. And I think what Sumit, what you said was exactly, when there's something that's out of my comfort zone, or something that I really want, or like a really big gig, I will ask for feedback, like feedback welcome, thoughts, because I don't think, a lot of times your agent's not going to tell you. They're just not, because they're busy. So it's your job to then ask, how can I make my read better? Because a lot of times, sometimes I won't be that good. I will have just auditioned for something else that was like, I don't know, it was a sexy read or a super excited read, and then I went into this audition, and then they'll write me back and they'll go, yeah, no, no. So yeah, so I think it's your job really.
So in a lot of ways, we answered his question, but we didn't, because the part we can answer is what makes you stick out more, is what makes you uniquely you. So keep working on that until what is uniquely you is what speaks the loudest and the most authentic. That's the best chance you have of standing out.
Also, you know, there's some, with all the great talent agencies around, some talent agencies do not have actors read in-house. Some agencies still have booth directors, or the agents still record people. So if you're not a techie, and if you really hate recording yourself at home, you do need to be able to do that as a backup. But if you said, you know, I don't like doing it, I get too nervous, it's overwhelming, then you should think about an agent who brings the actors in to read in-house. And they'll call you and say, hey, can you come in Monday at 11 o'clock? We've got some scripts for you to read. So there are a few of them left, and they believe that's how their actors book. So, and also it makes me nuts when I think about trends. When one agency hears that, well, they don't bring their people in, well, that doesn't mean that it's a good thing. Everyone starts doing what everybody else does. So there are agents that understand the importance of their actors being directed in-house. And listen, I'm not knocking the ones that don't, but for those of you that are not techies and don't like recording at home, there are talent agencies that still have booths, and you can go in and you can read in-house, and you don't have to worry about reading at home.
And there's actually some studios around town where they have, you know, like VO and Go, Voice Tracks does that too, where you could go in and there's a director there full time, and you pay, I think it's $10 or something, and you get, you know, 10 to 15 minutes to do your auditions, and you get directed. So that's sometimes helpful.
Liz Warner. Hi, Liz. Liz's question is for Carol, Marilyn, or Samit. What has been your most surprising voiceover casting in the last 12 months? And she says, thank you.
You're welcome. I'll say I just worked on an Alfa Romeo project that I sent to Samit, and the client first went to the agents, then came to me, and then wanted, they very specific, only wanted a guy. And I always sometimes throw a woman in there. I just do. And still wanted a guy, took a long time. Then they went back to a couple agents because they didn't want to pay any more for casting, but then came back and booked a woman. So that was kind of cool. So yeah, National Car Campaign. Those are the good ones.
Yeah, this is for Samit. Person chooses to remain anonymous, I guess. When you distribute audition copy to your talent, how many audition submissions will you forward to the client? All? 50%? 5%?
That's a very good question, and everybody has a different sort of answer to this. I don't like cutting people unless they, you know, just did something that was completely wrong, didn't pay attention to the specs. But I don't, so I'll maybe submit, like on a national network television commercial, maybe 15 to 20 auditions, somewhere around there. And I maybe will actually give the copy to like 22 or 24. And then, you know, and at some point it becomes like an arbitrary decision, like, well, this person waited like and sent it in like a half hour later than we asked them to, or something like that, you know, just, but, you know, I try to listen to everything. I try to really, you know, put the best people on it and try to not over submit. Although with all the competition and everything like that, I'm finding that I'm submitting more people per project than I was even a couple years ago, you know.
Is that making a difference when you do that, do you think?
I feel like it is. I feel like, you know, just they're going to hear these auditions. This is the other thing that we, you know, didn't touch on, but a lot of, you know, talent now has agency representation in other areas, and they're getting some of these opportunities. So it's, you know, like there's certain people I know, if I don't give them this piece of copy, they're just going to read it for their Atlanta agent or Denver agent. So I might as well give it to them. You know, even if I don't always necessarily think that they're right for it, but that's the other thing, that's what's impacting agents and
that's the competition you feel.
Yeah.
Right? Because better you should get it than another agency.
Exactly.
Okay, got it. See, is it Johnson? Doesn't say. Oh, just. This is for an actor or one of you guys, I guess. What are the best resources for finding? I can't read that VO work for unrepresented VO talent and quality demos. Well, we were talking about that, whether it be commercial, audiobook. We should address audiobook, although this is about commercials, but audiobooks are kind of a more burgeoning area right now. There's a lot more opportunities in there right now than it's kind of a growing area. Promo, narration, animation. I think this is basically, I can't read the one for unrepresented voiceover. What's the best way, and what are the best resources for finding work for somebody that's not represented? I think that's the question, regardless of field.
So if it were me and I did not have representation, and I had been taking a lot of classes, and we also talked about that backstage a little bit, that you should be taking a lot of classes. And the lab is a wonderful resource. There's so many classes and time. I mean, you're like in LA where it's like there's so many people, so many great coaches, so many great teachers, and you can look around. If it were me, I would try to find. I believe, I don't know anymore, but there used to be like lists of ad agencies. I would send, what you were doing. I'd send mailers. I'd send emails with my, if you have taken enough classes and you think you have a good enough demo. Now, if you don't have a demo, also do your research. It should not cost you, $3,000-$4,000 to do a demo. You can and listen, go online and go and take a listen to SBV, CESD, DPN, Abrams, all the top agencies, and listen to their talent and take a listen to what the demos sound like, and do your research on that. What does that sound like? Who's your competition? Who do you sound like as a woman, as a man? What's your, where are you in terms of your tone? And then take a listen to their demos and break it down. What are they putting on their demos? Their demos are usually like about a minute now. I think they're down to a minute. So I know that you usually start with your, what your natural voice sounds like, what you do but well. And then take a listen. Do they have a retail spot? A partner read, some, what is it? A cosmetic read, that kind of thing. And really, again, it goes back to doing your research. And once you have a great demo, then do your mailers, send emails and really start seeing if you can get that kind of, go and meet with agents, so that you're not represented. If you're talented, you have a good demo, you should get an agent. And there are some great agents and they are looking for new talent. So it goes back to your job as, can I read copy? Do I have a good demo? Can I replicate what I did on my demo in my agent's office and for the product? So
this is the best advice you can get, is to listen to demos, is to go on the agency websites. There's a terrific website called voiceoverresourceguide.com. The great Dave Sebastian Williams. And it's also in hard copy at Samuel French and so on. But voiceoverresourceguide.com lists all the talent agents. Go in the LA or New York talent agencies and listen, geek out. Listen to these demos. You're going to have two reactions. One is, oh God, I'm going to go. What am I doing? This is insane. And the other is, this person is working.
I can do that.
And I mean, that happened the first time I ever saw a play. I could do that. But really, it's. I don't want to skip over this. Listening to working actors' demos. Because audio, it's not like going on YouTube where you get the spinning umbrella beach ball. Audio is so low tech. You can listen to 50 demos in about 10 minutes until you get to people in your category, your gender, and so on. And you're listening, and you can put search names in for celebrities for fun. That's the best way to spend your time. And I know that actors do that. You hear them in interviews. Well, I watched the original version. I swear to God, Bradley Cooper spent too much time looking at Chris Christopherson's performance in A Star Is Born.
You know,
But I mean,
there's
that's really with the voice and the whole, whole thing.
There's
He's from
also-
Pittsburgh, for God's sake. But that really is the best way to spend a geek hour by yourself, is to listening to other actors' demos.
And also, I would recommend going on Facebook. You can all friend me and check out the groups that I'm, friends with, like the Voiceover Collective. VO Buzz Weekly is a great YouTube channel and web series where they interview people in the industry, from people that are beginning actors to casting directors to producers and so on. There's WOVO, which is this, Paul was talking about them earlier, an organization that, is being very supportive of, I think, mostly non-union. I'm not sure about that. But what they'll do is it's networking. And they, hey, I know a friend that's looking for talent on this. And it's just kind of all about being collaborative and educating yourself, not only, of course, about getting the good demo and who the producers are and agents are, but just sort of business stuff and how to get into great workshops and who's a great coach and things like that. I think there's a lot of information out there.
Two others, iSpot TV and YouTube, believe it or not. Most major commercials are run on YouTube, and you can find all kinds of examples on there. So there's plenty of resources out there for you to take a look at in order to get up to speed. Carol?
But to answer the question,
Yeah.
how do you get work? Well, I mean, he was trying to find out how to get work when you're waiting to get an
When
agent?
you're not represented.
Okay. So I think I would say your work is to get an agent. You're going to work your ass off to get that agent, because that's how you're going to work. You're going to hear about a little something here and there, but you have to. Your work would be to get the agent.
And once you get the agent, you have to keep working.
Yes. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No pressure, though.
But also, if
No
you-
pressure.
But it's fun. But listen, to me, it's fun work though, because you're living your dream. I mean, it's fun. I mean, to me, if okay, it's Christmas time, the beginning of the year. Okay, let me get this list of agencies. Let me call. They're going to say things like, "Well, we're going to give you the email address to send demos." So it's going to go to this email address, but then you start talking to people, you're talking to friends. A friend might be represented by somebody that says, "Hey man, I'll refer you to my agent." So you just have to start thinking, I've got to get an agent, I've got to get an agent, I've got to get an agent. And you've got to really work at that, and it happens for everybody.
But you can also market directly. You can send to every cable TV entity in the country. They all hire promo announcers. You can go on History Channel, Animal Planet, and DVR and just a random hour of their documentaries. At the beginning and end of every single one of those presentations are production cards, production companies, and you Google them, and it's a woman and her husband living in Pacific Palisades who produces for the History Channel, and they hire voices. And so, while you're looking for an agent, you can also sell yourself in exactly the same traditional way that you did when you had a sales gig.
Good point. Very good point. And even when you're established, the challenges still exist. Real quick story. Don used to have a script on his bulletin board for a while that said they were looking for a Don LaFontaine sound-alike. Now, at his heyday, there was probably 70 of those going out a week. So I asked him one day, I said, "Why do you have that on your bulletin board?" And he goes, "I'll tell you," he says, "Steve and I saw that, and I decided that I was going to audition for that. And we used a different name." And I said, "Okay, so why do you got it up there?" He goes, "I didn't get the part." True story. True story. So they don't listen to every single one, and it has nothing to do with you, Or if they do, it doesn't mean they always hear it correctly, right?
Exactly.
Exactly.
Not
right.
personal, So this would be for the casting directors. Is it important for VO talent to build a relationship or a rapport with a voiceover casting director? Is that realistic in this day and age? I would think they're referring to.
I mean, if it develops naturally, but I feel like if you try too hard to make sure we're friends, that's not going to feel right. I'm a professional. I take pride in what I do, people connect. I feel like the relationships that have developed because I like a certain actor. He's professional, she's professional. They show up, they do the work. They're pleasant, they're in and out. And I'm never rushing, but I love it when someone nails it on the first take. Sometimes there's scripts that are a little bit wordy and everyone flubs in the same place. But most of all, you just want to be a pro. And if you're a pro and if you're really good at what you do, I'm going to want to see you all the time. I'm going to want to refer you all the time. And that's what happens. I'm sure you guys know on camera, commercial agents, casting agencies that like you, they see you. If you're a great villain, they see you all year for that role. They see you because they like you and they know that you're good at what you do. So that's the best thing. That's the best thing you could do for me. Be
Someday
good.
they're looking for somebody that sounds like you, right? Because you're not available. Right? What's the best etiquette if an agent does not respond to your demo? How often should you follow up?
Every day.
What not to do.
I don't mind a second phone call or email. To be honest, we get, as you can imagine, we get so many, and we do try to listen to them all. But if you haven't heard anything back by the second or third time, I think that's your answer. And it may not be that you are untalented. It just may mean that you have the wrong demo, or your demo doesn't showcase your talent perfectly. This is another important point. When you do make your demo, make sure you're ready to make your demo. Don't rush into that process. Really find out who you are and what your strengths are and what your signature is. Because I think, that's our first impression is hearing your demo. And if it just doesn't sound authentic or it doesn't sound interesting or like a unique point of view that we don't already have covered, that could be the reason we're not responding.
Okay, great. Did you say we got 5 minutes left? You want to grab a couple more questions, or shall we wrap up? Okay, we want to wrap up. We're getting a queue. Did somebody have a quick question? Yeah.
I have a question about voiceover demo. What is it that is so particular that we pay $2,001? What is the expertise that people can do those voiceovers, and what is the expertise of that?
That's a really great
That's a great question.
Because a lot of people are teaching and doing demos and doing a lot of things that they really are not qualified to do. So it is good to ask around and get referrals. I'm sorry, Cynthia, I'm just very passionate about that. But go ahead. But that's a great question. You go ahead.
No, what I was, I think that it's really important to hire people who know the trends and know what the agents specifically are looking for, because in order to be able to showcase what you do, it needs to. There's kind of a little bit of an algorithm. I guess this is the best way to, and it's very specific. So if you listen to the top voices and the demos on the agent's website, you'll hear so that when you hear a demo that has not been done by someone who knows the trends and knows the algorithm, it sticks out like a sore thumb, and you don't sound like a player. And then you're immediately, your opportunity to make that first impression is gone. I cannot tell you how many people, and this happens all the time, and I'm sure it's happened to you guys, where, I'll have somebody say, everybody tells me I have a great voice. What do I do? So, so go take a class. Do not make a demo. Do not make a demo. Don't let anybody talk you into making a demo. What do? They take a class. They make a demo. They sent it to an agent. I sent it to all the agents. I never heard back. Well, guess what? Your demo probably sucked, and no one's going to call you back. And so now you ruined your opportunity with your agent, with that possible agent, because they know that you're green. They know that you don't really know what you're doing. Why? Because you sent a demo that was not of that caliber. So can you tell what the difference is between a $500 demo and a $2,000 demo? Probably not. But they can.
What I was going to say is any legit good demo producer out there will tell you when you're ready. There's a good handful of very honest demo producers out there. You are paying for their expertise. We all know that most of your spots on your demos are manufactured. They're not real spots that you've done. We know that. We're listening for your range and the types of reads that you do. And a good demo producer will get that out of you. If you go in to make a demo, and like I was saying earlier, and you're not ready and it took you 40 takes, then you've got an unprofessional demo producer, in my opinion. So the good demo producers, yeah, it is expensive, but you get one shot. That's why you don't want to make a demo until you're ready. And if you go do a workshop and then that person tells you you're ready to make a demo, you're going to submit that to agents, and agents will say, you're not ready, go take more workshops. You take more workshops and you learn all the things you shoulda, woulda, coulda done. And then you're like, oh my God, I just spent $3,000. And so do it the right way. Take the good classes, talk to people. Who have you studied with? Who are the good producers? Though, as big as this community is, it actually is kind of small. I mean, there's only about 20 voiceover agencies here in Los Angeles, if that many, when you think of all the hundreds and hundreds of on-camera agencies out there. So we all know each other. We all know the scoop and who's making crappy demos and who's, taking advantage of talent. Word gets around. So, open your ears and listen to other people and take advantage of what's going on here. Come in here at the lab, try yourself doing different kinds of reads, the types of reads that you've heard on TV and radio. There's copy here. There's great classes here. It's really pretty wonderful what the lab has for talent to learn and grow from.
I want to offer an alternative point of view. While you're geeking out listening to other demos and taking classes and so on, those of you who do record at home in a closet with a cheap microphone, it doesn't matter. I really do advise sticking your head into the mouth of the dragon and putting something together. I was at a suburban radio station in San Francisco, and I put my first voiceover demo because I thought voiceover guys had to have demos, and they did. It was, I think, 5 identical 30-second commercials for the Concord Jazz Festival. And they all sounded exactly like that. And I brought it on cassette to LA, didn't have an agent. When my best friend called me up and said, do you have a voiceover demo? And he wasn't in the business. I said, yeah. 2 of his friends were producing something for a strip show for ABC. And they were inexperienced. The network had bought it. They hadn't put the bumpers in. We'll be right back after this. I got the gig. This was the shittiest demo that had been produced in the Western Hemisphere. Not to say that this is not brilliant advice, because it's good advice, which I've followed. But the fact that I made a demo because I thought, well, I should have a demo. It happens. You're going to have a friend who's in the realty businesses. Didn't you just do a crappy voiceover demo? Yeah. Well, my boss wants to have this voiceover on the real estate website. Shit happens. Mm-hmm. So I would really say at the same time that you're looking for pros and you're taking classes and you're listening to demos, what the hell is a record platform on your computer for? What are our voices for? What's that cheap snowball microphone for?
Well, I could see you're not sponsored by Snowball. On that note, I'd like to thank our panel for being here tonight.
And Mr. Paul Pape.
So, as we say goodbye, go easy on them. They're donating their time here tonight, so... but I'm sure they'll love to say hi to you here and there. And thank you for caring enough about your careers to be here, especially during a holiday week. Take care.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.